kind of jumping around in Galatians 5. We're not doing all of 13 through 26. I kind of pulled some extracts out of it, so I'll read to you what where I'm gonna be. So, just a quick word. Gracious God, be with us in this message. Make this message be from you, God. The words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, God, make them acceptable unto you. Amen. Galatians 5, 13 through 26. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command, love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, forbearance, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying each other. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Writing this sermon and determining what I was going to preach on, and knowing the way that we were trying to decide to design this message today, it was really hard to get the proper verse, to get the proper message. And so as I was reading and pondering several scriptures this week, this was the one that finally stuck out the most. And so I asked God for a very specific call in what God wanted me to say out of these words. And I really can't wait for the day that I get to do a book study over Galatians or do a sermon series out of Galatians. I've always loved Galatians. I've always thought it was one of the most riveting for me anyways. And so in this, I see the call, and that's where we're headed today. And we've pondered what our call is. We ponder that as individuals. We ponder that as church. We ponder that in the ministry a lot. And so I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has ever pondered what my call is. And I think that each of us will find that our call cannot be specifically tied down to one thought or one act either. We can't be called to earth for one simple thing. It's got to be... we're called to many things in our lives. It changes. So it will take some time to find that calling. And some of you who are older than me may be able to say, well, we had several callings. That's fantastic. How many different ways did you get to serve God? That's really cool to me. So it will take some time to figure out what God wants us to be doing. And of course, that call will change over the course of time. We do not call our process a journey by chance. It's a journey that changes us. God doesn't change. God never changes. We are the ones who change. We do. We call it a journey because there are many things that will change on our journey. And sometimes the call is not what we want to hear. Sometimes the call that we receive is not the call that we want. As some of you can probably attest, there have been times in your life that you probably said to yourself, when God said, go and do this, you said, really? Me? You want me to do this? All of us have been in that spot, and all of us have been in a place that we're just not sure how to deal with. And today I think about the importance, on this Memorial Day, I think about the importance of the fallen soldiers that fought for their country. I think about the soldiers that didn't come home, or came home in a much different way than they or their families could ever have imagined. The other night, Christy and I were watching TV, I know the one rare time this week we got to watch probably a 30-minute episode before the little one screamed. And there's a show called One Day at a Time, and it's about a single Latina mother in one of the large suburbs who is raising her children with the help of her mother. And on the show, they get into an argument about church. And so we're going to watch a little scene of that. It's not very long. I'm going to warn you while he's pulling it up. She does make one reference that I think is inappropriate. It's not all that inappropriate. It's not inappropriate at all, but it is very representative of how we are as a church congregation sometimes. Across the board, not just us. Everybody. Give us just a second. Not even our phones work down here in downtown Anna, let me tell you. So.
We're going to church. Enter. We can do that? You can't. We would all go together, us. Your mother would go hiking with Satan.
Yeah, and then we'll go to Applebee's, because Satan loves the Fiesta Live chicken.
So I guess you want to take my grandchildren to hell with you.
I don't want to go to hell. There is no hell.
Don't worry, Papito. There is.
Okay, you really want to do this? All right, let's do this. I am not even sure I even believe in God, okay?
Hardcore. Okay, you're so smart. If God doesn't exist, who made all of this? Target.
Okay. Can we agree that if there is a God, it's gender neutral, not a he or a she?
No. God is a man. If he were a woman, there would be less problems. Rosita Donnie tries so hard.
Look, Mommy, I get it. You like going to church. It's habit. You put on lipstick, you get dressed up, you see your friends, you gossip. Oye, la nieta de Olguitica ganó tetas. It's your little social club, Mommy, and that's fine.
It is more than that. I pray. I seek forgiveness.
And I am so glad that that gives you comfort. But that doesn't mean that God exists, okay? I'm sorry.
He kept you safe. Every day that you were gone, he kept you safe. My little girl says she wants to go in the army, and then the army sends her to Afghanistan, where she is getting shot at, and I don't even know what else. Have you any idea how much I worried? When you were deployed, I went to church every day, and I prayed that he would keep you safe. And he did. So don't you tell me about God. I know that God exists. And he is right.
You can stop it there. She goes on in a few more minutes. The daughter goes on and they talk about it for a few more minutes. But then the daughter says something that it stuck with me, and it made me think. The seed was planted a little bit, but the daughter says everyone has something that inspires them. We all have something that inspires us. There is so much theology that can be drawn out of this. There's so much that you can take and you can do. And apparently the little girl, she must be destined for Bright Divinity School, because she said what she said about God being male or female. That is a conversation they have at Bright Divinity School once a week. How do you know that God is male? Or how do you know that God is female? We're not getting into that right now. So, at least once a week. So, we are inspired by what God calls us to do. The greatest thing about it is that we have the freedom to choose and the freedom to do what God calls us to. Yes, we can say no to God. I don't know about you, but I'm not. And I don't want to get into my call statement for you again, but I know with a shadow of a doubt that I'm doing what God has sent me to do. And there are a few of you sitting in this room who could probably remember 18 years ago, Mr. Evelyn Ratton sitting right down here that said, Wayne Walters, you will either be a teacher and a preacher, and here we are 18 years later, I've done both. That's not what I wanted to do then, but God sent me anyways. In this very room, I made the commitment to follow Christ. And in this very room, I made a decision to become a preacher and to work for God and follow the example that Christ set. But none of it came free. None of it came easy. Nor none of it will be free. Not for me, not for you. None of it will be without sacrifice, and none of it will be without God. And I firmly believe that our lives are not complete until we do what God has sent us to do. And we keep doing what God sent us to do. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with our call. Early on in college, I took an economics class, which determined that I was not going to be a business major, by the way. That and a couple of other classes. But I learned a term that has stuck with me. It's called Tinstaffel. Anybody know what Tinstaffel is? Anybody ever heard Tinstaffel? Buddy, in the bank world, have you ever heard Tinstaffel? No? Okay. It was a newer term that came, I think my professor may have made it up because nobody else ever knows what it is. But Tinstaffel says there is no such thing as a free lunch. Okay. There is no such thing as a free lunch. What in this world is free? Can you think of anything that didn't cost somebody something, somewhere, somehow? There is not anything that is free. As Christians, we are the greatest example of Tinstaffel. We are the best example that I can think of about getting something for free that we didn't work for. But it is given just because. And the only time we got it for free was in the Old Testament in God's love in the covenant. That's the only time it was free. Because of the New Testament, it's no longer free. The New Testament starts something else. The New Testament is God's grace, given in the form of His Son, who He sacrificed on the cross so that we might live free of sin and free to choose. But it costs something. It costs something. We like to think that our salvation is freely given, but it's not. We like to think that our security is freely given, but it's not. It costs lives. It costs blood, no matter how you look at it. In our civil life and our Christian life. In our civil life, our freedom comes at a cost. Now, I can't stand here and pretend what it is like to serve in the armed forces. I have no idea. I don't know what it's like to sit at home and pray and wonder if someone in my family will come home because they are serving their call in the military. I can't even imagine what military families go through on a daily basis. But I imagine it is something like this in the clip we just watched. I know God is real because I went to church every day and prayed for safety. I have many friends who have served or are serving, and I am grateful for them. But it's not free. It comes on the sacrifice of their kids, of their wives, of their husbands. It is not free. And sometimes it costs them their lives. And that makes me sad. In our Christian life, our freedom has come at a cost as well. The ultimate sacrifice was given so that we might not suffer from sin and the wages of sin. The sacrifice was provided so that we would be able to live without fear of what would happen to us when we chose sin. So go with me back into Galatians. There are two parallel options to choose here. For now, parallel. We'll leave it parallel for now. We can indulge in the flesh, the devour or be devoured lifestyle, destroy each other, continue to keep each other from being the best that each of us can be, or we can walk in the Spirit. The text states it very clearly, for the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other. So instead of a parallel life, then we're really looking at more of a perpendicular life. Right? A life that is constantly looking up and looking to God for guidance. This is our vertical life. I prefer this life. This is the life that is focused on God. The life that doesn't have to worry about what lies behind us or around us, because God's surrounded us with God's love. Everything has already been done for us because we have our eyes on the cross, on God. The vertical life, a life looking up, always moving towards God. And then you've got the horizontal life. The horizontal life is the life where I feel like you walk in a circle. You're going always around. You're always looking at what can come at you. You're always looking at what's behind you. So you're doing this or you're doing this. Constantly pulled away from the focus of God. A life that is continually checking its back to make sure that its back is okay. This life sounds like a very tiresome life. Much energy is spent looking for things that can tear apart, rather than looking for things that can build up. But we go back into Galatians. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are the traits we should be exhibiting to each other, to the world around us, to those in our community. We should be revealing that God called us to love our neighbor. It doesn't say we have to like what they're doing or do what they are doing. We just have to love them. It's part of the covenant. I've said it before and I will say it again. You must always love someone. You don't always have to like someone, but you always have to love them. And we must find the joy in everyday experiences and see how God works in us to keep that joy alive. We must live peacefully among each other, continually seeking Christ and the perfection that His life exemplified. We must show patience, self-control, and tolerance. We must be kind on all that we do, be good in all that we do, be faithful in all that we do, and be gentle in all that we do. This is a huge part of what we have been called to do when we say we are led by the Spirit. We must take on the image of God and represent that image well. As we think about our own personal calls, as you think about your own personal calls to follow Jesus, you knew that there would be hardships. You knew that there would be trials. You knew that it wasn't going to be easy, but you still made the choice to follow.